Should the government increase spending on public transportation? I think as far as probably more funding for people on Medicaid and stuff like that, but I think we should have more options for privatized transportation. Like right now, we only have like one bus. We only have one bus company where I'm at, and it's basically a public. It's basically a public option, but you pay for it, kind of like the post office. I mean, yeah, like the U.S. Post Office or something like that. So I think we should have more options. We should have more competition. That would help a lot. Do you support the use of nuclear energy? As a word, as it stands right now, no. Not until we find a better way to get rid of the waste. Because right now, the waste is very toxic. It can really like destroy the water if we just dump it in the water. Right now, we just leave it in. We literally just leave it in like barrels, in like metal barrels or something. I don't know what they're called, but we can't get rid of the wastes. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know too much about climate or environmental issues, only because there's just so much information out there that I really can't just. It's one of those things where I really have to like sit down and like study, because I would really like to learn more. Should the government require children to be vaccinated for preventable diseases? No, but require vaccination in order to attend public school. I don't believe the government has the right to force a vaccination on you. If it doesn't involve the general welfare of people. Like, you can't. I mean, like, if you want to homeschool your kid, then you should be able to homeschool your kid. But you can't expect the government not to be able to have the general welfare of people in place. Like things like mumps, things like measles. If your kid's sick, you shouldn't be going to school. But vaccinations should not be mandated by the government. Never. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about that. I mean, that's just a open shut case, really. Should producers be required to label genetically engineered foods? Yeah. Consumers have a right to know what's in their food, basically, is what we're saying. Don't get me wrong, lemonade stands, kids selling water on the street. There's no reason why the state is fining people let alone kids, for things of that nature. Your your small businesses, corporations, all those guys, they should be regulated. Now, as far as regulations go, they should be there to protect the safety of the workers, protect the consumption. Everything else, generally, let that business owner decide. Should government fund space travel? No, not. No, the government. Not until we drastically decrease our federal deficit. So don't get me wrong, space is important, but right now we got other things to fund, in space. I mean, we got homeless people, we got an economy collapsing, we got a pandemic, there's other things we got to worry about. Should the president be able to authorize military force against Al Qaeda without congressional approval? No, we need due process, because if you don't have due process, you have a system where the hierarchy can basically do whatever the hell they want. And on top of that, these wars are illegal. These wars are offensive. I mean, we had to fake produce evidence, quote unquote evidence, of Osama bin Laden admitting to 9/11. So we went into Afghanistan with bullshit evidence that we knew wouldn't stick. Apparently everybody knew it was Osama bin Laden the day of the attack. And this goes against the Constitution. The Constitution says Congress has to declare war. Congress has to declare war. The executive branch has every reason to start wars. They're the strongest branch of government when it comes to that, because they are in control of that. So we need to make sure the legislative branch is controlling the executive is checking the executive branch, and vice versa. So we can't just go into war because of quote unquote terrorism. We can't. I mean, if Iran invaded our country all willy nilly, or if said we attacked them with no evidence, which we have, but that's neither here or there. The point is, if Iran came into our country and invaded illegally, we would have a problem with it. So if we would have a problem with it if they did it to us here, why are we not having the same standards for their places? I mean, the United States thinks it's a world police, and it's not. We should be held to the same standards as any other country, and that's where I fall out of line with the right and the conservative wing, because they think that we can just go to war all willy-nilly and we can do whatever the hell we want. We can't. We have checks and balances. We have due process. Should the U.S. assassinate suspected terrorists in foreign countries? Notice the word suspected and not actual terrorists. I want to catch terrorists, but I want to make sure that we got the actual person. And we've tortured people. Come to find out they've had nothing to do with torture. We've sent them to Guantanamo Bay. I've had innocent people tortured. Torture is against the Eighth Amendment. Oh, you know what? Should the U.S. assassinate suspected terrorists? No, they should be captured and given a fair trial. That's what the 14th Amendment is. That's what due process is. If you want to say somebody's a terrorist, it's up to the state to prove it. So if you can't prove it, then clearly you have no evidence. You can't just say somebody's a terrorist. I can say somebody's a rapist. Doesn't necessarily mean they're a rapist. We have to have a trial. We have to have the evidence. But this whole radical idea that we can just do whatever the hell we want because there's terrorism going on is just wrong. You can't just do whatever you want. Should the government increase or decrease military spending? Decrease. I want to decrease it to 65%. I like what Jorgensen says. We should be like Switzerland, armed and neutral. You know, I want people to have more access to guns. We should have the same access to guns as the military has. And on top of that, you know, like I said, 7 illegal offensive wars. We're helping Saudi Arabia fund a genocide in Yemen. So we can't afford to do this anymore. It's inhumane and it's illegal, and it goes against everything we say we are. Should the U.S. accept refugees from Syria? Yeah. We should accept as many refugees as we can. The thing that's going on in Syria, a lot of it has to do with U.S. involvement, so we owe it to them. Just like what we did with Japan, just like what we did with Germany, we helped them reconstruct, and now there are no hard feelings. I do believe we're going to strategically get out of all these wars we're in. We should do it within a year. Within a year, the most. I don't think there's a reason why it should take more than 12 months to get out of somewhere. I think we should, all the countries that we've bombed, we should at least give them some aid for a certain amount of time so that they can rebuild their cities and their homes. Because if you don't do that, then, you're left with a crumbled nation that has a lot of infrastructure they have to fix with money they probably don't have. So, I think we at least owe that to them. Should foreign terrorism suspects be given constitutional rights? Everybody should. Your rights come from God, not government. At least that's what we say. So, if that's the case, we can't just pick and choose. Only Americans getting God-given rights, quote unquote. It's just, it makes no sense. It's not, excuse me, it's not consistent. So, yeah. Should foreign terrorism suspects be... No. No. Yes. Oops, sorry. Yes. Give them a fair trial and shut down Guantanamo Bay. Should the military be allowed to use enhanced interrogation techniques such as waterboarding to gain information from suspected terrorists? No. Torture is inhumane, unethical, and violates the Eighth Amendment. No cruel or unusual punishment, and no absurd fines, which we're breaking both right now. When you think about cash bail and the waterboarding. So, yeah. Should every 18-year-old citizen be required to provide at least 1 year of military service? No. We have enough people to volunteer. Service should be a choice instead of an obligation. We have enough people to volunteer, so there's no need for that. Should the U.S. remain in the United Nations? Yes, but scale back our current involvement. The UN has its flaws and stuff, but, I would like to see the UN come together for important issues like humanitarian crises. Like if there's another Rwandan genocide happening, we're not just going to let it happen. We're all going to come together as the world and go in and stop this genocide. I'm sick of the United States having to be the world police. We misuse that power, and it shouldn't be a power given to any country to begin with. Do you support the killing of Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani? No. And I think it's very disheartening how that all went about, because when we killed him, he was on a peace mission to reduce Iranian and Saudi tensions. The Iraqi prime minister said this. He was on a peace mission. He was one of the top generals in our fight against ISIS. I'm not defending everything he did. There's a lot of people saying that, oh, well, he was going to hurt more Americans, and he already killed a lot of Americans in Iraq. Well, none of that's true, and there's no evidence to point to that. And even when Mike Pompeo was pushed about this, when it first happened, even he couldn't give us evidence that Iran had any plan or did attack us. He said there was a potential attack within the region. So not the United States. And again, we're illegally in Iraq. We're illegally in all these other countries to begin with. So this is just another slap in the face. Should the U.S. continue to support Israel? No, Israel is committing war crimes and mass murder against the Palestinians. Even the UN agrees that they are breaking at least 45 resolutions, or I think it was 43. And the ICJ has confirmed that these are war crimes and shouldn't be recognized. Even the United States at this point does not recognize the Israeli settlements because, again, they're illegal. Palestine is just defending itself. All this BS rhetoric about them trying to breach the Israeli wall, I mean, that's just disgustingly wrong. And it's kind of funny. They talk all this shit and pretend like Palestinians are the terrorists, yet you can see photos of the IDF using Palestinian teenagers as human shields. There's a famous photo of a 13-year-old being strapped to one of their little jeeps or whatever, their military cars, as a human shield, and that's truly, truly disgusting. I can't explain how massively disgusting that is, that actually happens in the 21st century. But unfortunately it does, and unfortunately you have scumbags like Trump and our government backing a country like Israel. I'm not saying we should, invade Israel or whatever. Should we get rid of our aid and support? Absolutely. And, honestly, I'm on the fence of having UN instructed troops going into Palestine so that they can be defended and that Israel can no longer touch them. But that's just high in the sky, whatever it's called, fantasy land, because that shit's never going to happen. So no, cut all support and aid. Should the U.S. remain in NATO? No, this was used in the Cold War, so it's obsolete. This was all the nations that wanted capitalism, and then it was against the Warsaw Pact. We don't need it anymore, really. Do you support Obama's move to lift the trade and travel embargo on Cuba? Yeah, it was stupid to begin with. The whole Cold War was stupid to begin with. Should the U.S. increase or decrease foreign aid spending? Decrease. We should not give aid to any countries. We need to focus on our people. Right now, our people are starving. And how do we expect to help other countries when we can't even help our own country? Should the United States pull all military troops out of Afghanistan? Yes. It was an illegal war to begin with. Should Jerusalem be recognized as the capital of Israel? No. Because if that's the case, then I guess Mexicans have a right to California and Texas and all the other parts of territory that we took from them. And then I guess black people deserve reparations. So it's a never-ending cycle of victimhood and who's owed what. And I'm just kind of... in this day and age, we really don't need that type of mentality being advocated. Should the U.S. defend other NATO countries that maintain low military defense budgets relative to their GDP? No. If you can't defend your own country, then you probably don't deserve it. That's just how I feel about that. Should the military fly drones over foreign countries to gain intelligence and kill suspected terrorists? No. The military has no right to do so without a congressional declaration of war. Should the U.S. continue NSA surveillance of its allies? No, because what if they did that shit to us? We also should abolish the NSA and just make it another branch of the FBI, honestly. Their illegal spying of us is disgusting. And the fact that people are so willfully ignorant that they really don't give a shit that our own government is spying on us. Should the Chinese government be able to extradite fugitives from Hong Kong? I don't know too much about that. I'm going to skip that. Should the government cancel the production of the F-35 fighter? Yeah. We already have enough weaponry and artillery that could kill the human population 5-10 times over. We don't need to spend over $1 trillion on the F-35. That's so silly. Should the U.S. sell military weapons to India in order to counter Chinese and Russian influence? No. We shouldn't. We should stay out of conflicts. In fact, we should not sell military weapons to any foreign country. I think that's a rule we should have. Only because it's like, war is a racket. War is truly a racket. We've known this since the 50s. And we all know what this is about, to feed the military-industrial complex. This isn't about security or freedom or whatever the fuck they're going to lie to you about. This is about making profit for the billionaire class who suffer off of our misery and pain. Should the U.S. go to war with Iran? No, they're not an immediate threat to us. They never really have been. We're the ones who replaced their democratically elected leader in 1953, the Shah. Oh no, that was Mohammad Mossadegh, right? And then we replaced him with the Shah. And then in 1979, I think, 1979 was the revolution. And basically they just had enough of him. Should the government attempt to influence foreign elections? No. This is just... I understand why they have questions like this. It's just... How could you... I guess where I get confused is how... Should the government attempt to influence foreign elections? It's just, how would somebody say no to this? Like, this goes back to the mentality that I just truly don't understand anymore, where we're the world police and we can do whatever the hell we want. Like, I just don't understand why people can't understand the concept of, what if they did the same thing you want to do to them? Should it be illegal to join a boycott of Israel? No. Jesus Christ, no. This is another thing I love, that the Republican Party talk shit about the race card. You bring up Israel, they love the race card. Everything bad said about Israel. Oh, you're an anti-Semite. Should the U.S. conduct military strikes against North Korea in order to destroy their long-range missile and nuclear weapons capabilities? No. No, no, no. No. Should convicted criminals have the right to vote? Yeah. Every citizen deserves the right to vote. The felony system does nothing except it's a feel-good policy that does nothing except makes these people a financial burden on us. They can't vote, they can't go to college, they can't get a job because they're being discriminated against. The recidivism rate is like 43%. It's disgusting. Like, the felony system is unconstitutional. Like I said earlier, our rights come from God, not government. So why are we taking away natural and God-given rights? Stop funding. Should funding of local police departments be redirected to social and community-based programs? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. We could take the money we use to militarize the police. And this is a lot of talk, too. A lot of people have been saying this. Have a social worker there with a police officer in case things get crazy. Have that social worker talk to people. Or better yet, do what Switzerland does. You have to take 3 years of college before you become a police. Like, you need a college education over there to be a police officer. So we should have people studying primarily human interaction, social interactions, and psychology, and things to de-escalate. Have community policing again. Have legit criminal justice reform, like body cameras for all law enforcement, less excessive use of force, demilitarize the police, stop and frisks. Do you support mandatory minimum sentences for people charged with drug possession? No. Drug possession, if you're in prison or jail, if I'm president, you're getting out my first day in office, along with any other victimless crime. Should nonviolent prisoners be released from jail in order to reduce overcrowding? Yes, but I think they should perform community service on a daily basis. They still committed a crime and they still need to finish their time. So, what we should do is have a community service program for nonviolent prisoners, so they can clean up the community, clean up graffiti, pick up trash, you know, things of that nature. Better than just having them overcrowded in prisons and stuff like that. I mean, what's the point? They can help the community and they can get out, and, maybe we can give them some certain treats or whatever. I don't know. Something that's actually productive and will help everybody on both sides. Should the prisons ban the use of solitary confinement for juveniles? Yes, we should. Solitary confinement is psychological torture. People have literally committed suicide because of what they've dealt with in solitary confinement. I think after 15 days, the UN considers it they consider it torture. So, but we need to get rid of it altogether. It's psychologically damaging. Like, it's just really bad. Like, Khalif Browder is a good example of what happens when you put somebody in solitary confinement for a very long time for shits and giggles. And he was talking to himself. He was going up on roofs and preaching. He thought the government was, like, spying on him, like, viciously. So we can't have something like this. Should prisons ban the use of solitary confinement? Yes. Should police officers be required to wear body cameras? Oh yeah, I just said this. It will protect the safety and rights of police officers and citizens. Should the government hire private companies to run prisons? No, there are just certain things the free market shouldn't profit off of, and that's fully privatized healthcare and privatized prisons. You're incentivized. The private prison complex is no joke. Like, even the CCA admitted that these unjust laws are beneficial to them and they profit off of them. So this isn't about justice or freedom or democracy or whatever you think it is. It's about making billionaires profit. Like 70% of ICE facilities are privatized. So this is all for profit. Truly for profit. And there are certain things that we simply should not have people profiting off of. And these are one of these. Should drug traffickers receive the death penalty? No, that's the silliest shit I've ever heard. Donald Trump saying that. He talks about how he's pro-life. I swear to God. If you're pro-war, if you're pro-killing a drug trafficker just for selling, then you're an idiot. If you're selling to 15-year-olds, yeah, you probably should go to jail. But killing them, when they didn't even kill anybody, and you want me to give them the death penalty. Should the U.S. build a wall along the southern border? It's too costly and ineffective. 2 out of 3 immigrants overstay their visas. 20 to 40% arrive on plane. It's really not hard. Like, I live next to Canada. I have an enhanced license. Which basically means I don't need a passport to go to Canada because Canada is like 35 minutes from me. All I would have to do is simply stay in Canada and not fucking leave. So it's basically a matter of creating a simple pathway to citizenship, because at the end of the day, it's really not hard to get into a country. And like things like passports and visas, I mean, it's impossible. I mean, if you really, really, really wanted to get into a country illegally, you can. So instead of being assholes, why don't we have a system where we can make it easier for immigrants to work here legally? We could have them in the system, they could be working and making our economy better, making a better life for themselves as well. But instead, we want to profit off of illegal immigration. Like I said, 70% of these ICE facilities are privatized. This has nothing to do with your security, especially when the studies prove that U.S. naturally born U.S. citizens cause far more crime than immigrants and illegal immigrants. Like, it's silly. Should illegal immigrants have access to government subsidized health care? No, but they should be able to get private. They should be allowed to purchase private insurance. That's for sure. At the end of we should give working illegal immigrants temporary amnesty, but we have to have rules and we have to have referees. Like, we can't just have open borders, especially when we have states practicing their 10th Amendment right to fund certain things for their state. Yeah, we just need a system. We can't just have a no-law system. You know, there's certain liberties that trump the general welfare as far as individual liberty goes. This is true, but you have people come in here. They're not with open borders. They're not going to be paying taxes. There's just a lot of things that are just going to be happening. So we need a very, very simple pathway to citizenship. Should illegal immigrants be offered in-state tuition rates at public colleges within their residing state? Yeah, they should. They should be able to do that. Should local law enforcement be allowed to detain illegal immigrants for minor crimes and transfer them to federal immigration authorities? I'm just going to put no. Illegal for minor crimes. Like, what if they get caught with marijuana or something? Like, then they get to be transferred to a federal ICE facility, and now their whole life is ruined because they wanted to smoke a little bit of weed. If you're in work, if you're an illegal, you've paid into the system with taxes. You haven't. Even if you haven't been caught or committed a crime. I mean, needless to say, minus a little background check and a little vetting, I don't really. Sure, you broke the law. You broke the law, but at the end of the day, is it really, really that serious where we should deport somebody to a whole nother country just because they wanted a better life for themselves? Like, that's where I just like, okay, I get the law defense, but there has to be some type of humanity in this. Should children of illegal immigrants be granted legal citizenship? Yes, if they were born here. Should sanctuary cities receive federal funding? Yes. I think it's important for them to track how many refugees or illegals they keep in their city, but excuse me. But other than that, it's states' rights. I mean, local rights, that's not necessarily a thing, but I mean, we have states' rights, we should have local rights. Should Muslim immigrants be banned from entering the country until the government improves its ability to screen out potential terrorists? No. Banning immigrants based on their religion is unconstitutional. Should working illegal immigrants be given temporary amnesty? Yes. As long as they pay taxes. Should immigrants be required to learn English? If you want to be a janitor in America for the rest of your life, by all means, go ahead. But no, you shouldn't be required to learn English. English isn't even the official language of the United States, which, unfortunately, a lot of people don't know that, but yeah. Should the U.S. increase restrictions on its current border policy? No, make it easier for immigrants to access temporary work visas. Should the U.S. increase or decrease the amount of temporary work visas given to high-skilled high skilled immigrant workers. We should increase it because there's a lot of jobs that Americans aren't required to do or can't do. So when we take advantage of high skilled workers, it's been shown that businesses do see revenue increases when they hire high skilled workers. So absolutely. Should immigrants to the United States be allowed to hold dual citizenship status? Yes. Should immigrants be required to pass a citizenship test to demonstrate a basic understanding of our country's language, history, and government? No, because majority of Americans can't even pass that. So how are we going to have the same standards for immigrants if majority of Americans wouldn't be able to pass that? Should immigrants be deported if they commit a serious crime? No. No, they shouldn't. They've been here for 20, 30 years. There's no reason for that. Should should there be a temporary ban on all immigration to the United States? No. Freedom over fear. We shouldn't let fear override our freedoms. We would also be getting involved with the market and capitalism. Like people should be able to hire labor, not just in the United States. So no, we should increase the amount of immigrants we currently allow into the country. Do you support increasing taxes for the rich in order to reduce interest rates for student loans? We don't. No, but we should still reduce interest rates for student loans. You know what? I'm gonna say yes. Because we have over $1 trillion in student loan debt. Too many Americans not working. It was a scam. So, and you can't even file bankruptcy on these loans, and that's disgusting. They want to make sure if you can't, they know that you can't pay it, so they want to punish you for not paying it. And that's how our system goes. If you can't pay it, we're going to make sure you can't pay anything else. Just with the whole, me and my friend was talking about this. They suspend people's driver's licenses sometimes. How the fuck? They suspend their driver's licenses because they don't pay child support. But it's like, okay, dumbass. Now you just took away their car. Now they now they can't go to work and they can't make money. Not as easy at least, but that's silly. It's so silly. Should the federal government pay for tuition at four-year colleges and universities? Yeah, but we shouldn't nationalize the education system. We should just privatize it. We should do what we would do with universal health care. Give everybody a government card. They get to choose whatever. They get accepted into the college or university they want, and then we pay for it. Same with trade school. We need trade jobs. And yeah, honestly, and this will lift people out of poverty. Like, the future generations tend to not do better than the last generation. And right now, too many poor people can't afford college. We're giving people, and then they bitch about minimum wage, about us wanting to increase the minimum wage. Well, you don't want us to have free college. You don't want us to have universal daycare for the single parents who don't have a babysitter. So basically, screw you. You have the life you have. And I just don't think that's fair. I think people deserve to have opportunity. And I don't think that economic servitude should be a thing in a country. There should always be a way out. There should always be safety nets. Which of course, if you're a lazy person, if you're just somebody who just loves feeding off the system, those people, we need to deal with them. But right now, we live in a system that's just messed up, man. Should the federal government fund universal preschool? Yeah, because $750 to $800 is the annual cost for childcare, and that's rent numbers right there. Majority of you can't even afford a one-bedroom apartment in any state if you work 40 hours. So this is scary. Yes, as long as parents also have an option to send their child to private school. Do you support charter schools? Yes, but not at the expense of funding public schools. Do you support the Common Core national standards? No. Education should be handled at the state and local level instead of the national level. I want to abolish the Department of Education and bring the power back to the states and the local governments. They're the ones who know their people better than the feds. So Kentucky knows how to educate their people more than DC does. And we need to have that mindset. And sure, should we have a general curriculum? Sure, if it's fair, if it makes sense, and if it's a type of system that actually works, and we base that system off of the best education systems we already have in the world. Sure, but for the most part, all of this should be left up to the states. Should the government decriminalize school truancy? No, it's a case-by-case situation. Don't get me wrong, there are shitty parents. But at the same time, there could be legit reasons why kids are missing school. Domestic violence. Legit serious things that I believe could be a good reason for school truancy. And putting their parents in jail isn't going to do anything. That's silly. So no. I hate Kamala Harris. She thought it was a smart idea to criminalize school truancy. There's a lot of reasons why I don't like Kamala Harris. Should there be more restrictions on the current process of purchasing a gun? No. And the government should pass a national stand your ground law. Now, I'm going to put this, but I don't believe in a national stand your ground law. I don't believe in the stand your ground law as it is now, because we've seen too many cases where people have gotten away with murder because of this law and how it's articulated and how it's implemented. We should repeal stand your ground law with something that makes more sense. It's complex. That's why we need to have some type of castle doctrine law, or maybe something along that lines where you have a right to self-preservation and to defend yourself, but it has to be legit. It has to be a very legit reason, and the circumstances have to be legit as well. Like, I don't know. It's a complex situation, but we should have something less radical than stand your ground, that's for sure. Should teachers be allowed to carry guns at school? Yes, they should. There's so many examples of cops cowering and not going into the school with school shooters. I think we saw it with Parkland. We saw it with Columbine. I think we saw it with Sandy Hook, too. Over 90% of mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. And honestly, guns potentially save millions of lives. We're talking about from 55,000 to potentially 4.6 million lives annually being saved by guns. And we have studies from the CDC. We have we have surveys from the U.S. Justice of Bureau Statistics. We have multiple studies, pretty much strengthening that idea. So, guns, the average gun deaths are 13,000. So even if you took the lowest estimate, you're saving 6 times more of the lives than you're killing. Even if you took the lowest estimate. So, we need guns. Whatever the military has, we should have. And from there, it should We should make sure everybody has access to guns. There should be certain restrictions that shouldn't be a thing for guns. You know, training and all that other stuff we can talk about, but overall, whatever the military has, we should have. Should victims of gun violence be allowed to sue firearm dealers and manufacturers? No, I don't even understand this question. I do, but I don't. Should the president of the United States have the power to deploy military troops in order to stop protests? No. What we should do is utilize the police better and have them securing small businesses, and we should also have them patrolling in high crime, poor neighborhoods, because that's where all the looting and shit is happening. We're burning down small businesses. We're not burning down Target. We're not burning down Wendy's. Okay? We might be looting them, but we're not destroying small businesses. I mean, we're not burning them down. We're destroying small businesses. There's no need for the military to come in here. There's no civil war. These are peaceful protests. It's just our fascist president who just loves sending in the military to take down the peasants when they aren't grateful enough or get out of line. Are you in favor of decriminalizing drug use? Yes. Retroactively reduce sentences for those already serving time. And we're going to do that. And we're going to do that because drug consumption isn't a crime. The war on drugs has been a huge and utter failure. It was there. Even Nixon's aide admitted in the 90s they didn't care about drug usage. It was to arrest Nixon's political opponents, which were the Black Panthers and the hippies, and they associated the Black Panthers with heroin, associated hippies with marijuana. So that's how that went down. And the banning of marijuana was just based on complete racist propaganda. They said weed makes people kill their families. Weed makes black guys rape white women. It's disgusting. There's no marijuana can help. There's studies that have proven that marijuana can help with the opium crisis, which the opium crisis is a huge deal. 68,000 people are dying annually from it. Over $1 trillion spent on the war on drugs. No drug usage has decreased. Then you look at places like Portugal that have decriminalized all drugs. Half of their heroin users dropped dramatically. And we've seen overdoses, drug usage, and STD cases all decrease. So decriminalization and harm reduction does help. I would love to legalize all drugs. Should it be illegal to burn the American flag? No, it's a violation of free speech. That's silly. If it's speech that does not harm you or threaten you, there's no reason. Like, I don't even need to go over this. Either you believe in the First Amendment or you don't. Do you support affirmative action programs? No. They are there for good intentions, but usually they harm more than they hurt. Because then you're giving people jobs based on their race rather than their qualifications and their experience. And that can have people go to colleges that are too hard for them, jobs that they have no business being in. So no. It should be based on the qualifications and the experience. Do you support the Patriot Act? No. It throws your Fourth Amendment rights right out the window. Like, you lose a lot of Fourth Amendment rights. Police can search your house without you there. They can call you a terrorist and hold you in jail, hold you in the holding center for much longer, which they don't even need to fucking prove you're a terrorist. They just need to say you are. It's disgusting, truly disgusting. The Fourth Amendment needs to be protected. No, and pass strict laws prohibiting government surveillance without probable cause and a warrant. Should the state government order schools to provide full online classes in order to combat coronavirus? Um, we can either have our liberties but do social distancing and masks, or we can do online. Now, I'm going to say yes, I prefer online, only because we need to reduce the cases, and trust me, other than that, like, people should be able to go out. Businesses should be open, just wear masks and social distance. That's what we should do. And if the government was gonna stop the economy and destroy people's lives, we should have had UBI. We should have had UBI. We should have had Medicare for all. We should have had something, a safety net. Because I mean, I just saw a video from Jimmy Dore that he just posted. People are getting evicted because they can't pay rent because they have no job. 26 million people are expected to be homeless next year. What the fuck are we gonna do? Nothing, because the government doesn't care about you. So yes, online schooling, but we should give schools the option to social distance. Should people on the no-fly list be banned from purchasing guns and ammunition? Anybody can be on a no-fly list. You don't have to do anything to be on a no-fly list. All you have to do is be a threat from the government. Literally, you have celebrities who are on a no-fly list and they didn't do jack shit. It's going to take our Second Amendment away, and they're using it on purpose to do so. Should the Supreme Court be reformed to include more seats and term limits on judges? I believe they should. I don't think it's a fair system where we're going to have the same type of judge, especially when they're not in the libertarian spectrum, have the same judge for 30 years making the same bad, unconstitutional decisions. So, yes, we should reform to have more seats, and we should have term limits for them. We should not limits per se, but, elections and stuff. It shouldn't be an oligarchy where the president gets to choose the Supreme Court justice. We should do it the way we do it with the legislative and executive branch. We should vote them in. I would love that. Should the U.S. government grant immunity to Edward Snowden? Yes, Edward Snowden is an American hero. He did nothing wrong except expose the unconstitutional, unwarranted NSA spying program that has been in effect since 2007 that he helped create and felt like shit about. He didn't know what was going on. He was a conservative patriot, So he was one of those people that, my government... At first he was like, my government is doing bad shit, but it's for the greater good. But then slowly but surely, he was starting to realize, okay, this is bullshit. We're doing illegal things. We got to stop. And he's an American hero. His whole life is destroyed because of what he did, and the U.S. refuses to give him a fair trial. So he's an American hero. Investigate the CIA and the NSA instead. Should college sports be played in the fall of 2020? Yes, but let each college and athlete decide. Yeah, we shouldn't... I don't know. If we're gonna... Like I said, I'm for social distancing and masks. So if people want to go out and enjoy a game, they should be able to. But other than that, we should let the college and athletes decide if they want to play. Should social media companies ban political advertising? No, it's the free market. If a certain social media company wants to, I don't see why not, but honestly, we should be publicly funding elections, and we should give every U.S. citizen an account of at least $100 so that they can donate to whatever party or campaign they want. Because we don't have a voice right now. And if we're going to have money in politics, money is power. A lot of people don't have money, so therefore they don't have power. Should the government be allowed to seize private property with reasonable compensation for public or civic use? No, the government should never be allowed to seize private property. That's eminent domain. And sure, you can give them a good check, but at the end of the day, it's my property. The government shouldn't be able to use my property if I don't want them to. Upgrade Air Force One? No. No, this is silly. Should local police increase surveillance and patrol of Muslim neighborhoods? No, that's unconstitutional, racist, and incendiary. Should internet service providers be allowed to speed up access to popular websites that pay higher rates at the expense of slowing down access to less popular websites that pay lower rates? No. The internet is something that shouldn't be touched for the most part. We should treat all traffic equally and continue the openness of the internet. That's what I believe. Internet is so important. That's the type of technology that is so important. We have knowledge right in our fingertips, within our phones. Like back then, you didn't have that. You had to go to a library. And God only knows how far you lived in the library, especially when there were no cars. So people really have no idea how important the internet is and how much of an advancement it is and how much it truly does help our lives. Should there be term limits set for members of Congress? No. They're called elections. Listen, I've had the same mayor in my city since 2009. He's clearly corrupt. He's clearly rogue. It's the people's fault that he's there. Because the people don't know or they don't care what he's doing. And sure, you can have term limits, but you're going to have a corrupt person there for 8 years. And whether there's term limits or not, that's not going to prevent corruption. That has never prevented corruption. The only way you should be able to get somebody out because they deserve to be out. It's the biggest threat to the Constitution is the people's ignorance of it. I forget who that quote is from, but yeah. Should the NSA be allowed to collect metadata of citizens' phone calls, such as numbers, timestamps, and call durations? No. And abolish the NSA. Make it another branch of the FBI. Should the redrawing of congressional districts be controlled by an independent, nonpartisan commission? Yes. Should the government pass laws to protect whistleblowers? Yes. Should the government regulate social media sites as a means to prevent fake news and misinformation? No, the government should not determine what is fake or real news, because if you let the government decide that, then you just set yourself up for a totalitarian country. Because now the government can pick and choose who's being truthful, who's not, what's real and what's not. Huge slippery slope. And you're not going to like the results when the government turns on you. Should the government raise the retirement age for Social Security? No. Eliminate the income cap on taxable earnings and stop spending current funds on other programs instead. Should the U.S. raise taxes on the rich? Not per se. Not per se. You see, my plans don't involve taxing the rich up the ass when we're talking about social democracy and implementing Medicare for all, free college, and stuff like that. We don't have to necessarily tax the rich up the ass. My specific plan, because there are a dozen ways to pay for this, my specific plan, we have two options. We can either cut military spending by 65%, end all the wars, reverse the Bush and Trump tax cuts, and implement one tax, which would be the employee payroll tax, 7.5%, which exempts the first $2 million, which saves small businesses and saves an annual $9K annually for these small businesses. I like those type of taxes that are effective and work. But there are certain taxes, like the household tax, where households making more than 29 grand are being taxed. That's silly. That's insane. No new taxes on the middle class or the poor for any reason. Um, but with that being said, with that being articulated, the question is, we can. I'm going to say reform to a flat tax. Um, hmm. I'm just going to leave this blank. I'm going to leave this blank only because I don't feel like this is specific enough, and I feel between it is maybe it is specific enough, but my personal plans involve technically raising a tax, and then I also would like to do the land value tax, which would give us a lot of money too, and we would, in my mind, it would be able to take away most, if not all, taxes, including the income tax. I'm just gonna leave it fake. I'm just gonna leave it blank. Should the government raise the federal minimum wage? Yes. We've done this in 18 states. It's worked. It's effective as long as you gradually do it annually. If you do it overnight, we're going to have problems. Um, it was effective. As far as I know, it was effective in Portland. Um, don't know about New York City. I don't know how they exactly did it. But we've had 18 states do it, one of my states being one of them. And it showed that even if you raise it to 1010 instead of 725, you could cut $7.6 billion in social safety nets if we were to do that. So if the argument is these people are lazy and we want to cut social safety nets, well, there you go. Raise the minimum wage. Um, but this this is just something that's just very important to me. That's why these are one of the things that I truly believe can humanize capitalism if done the right way. If we had UBI and a living wage, that's humanizing capitalism. That's making sure that somebody is set. You know, and we've seen studies where no, not everybody becomes lazy and they stop working. That's just not true. So we need a federal minimum wage. $15 I will fight for. But you have to but if not, we should do it locally, do it by county or voting district, and have a living wage that way. Should the US raise or lower the tax rate for corporations? We should lower. Lower but eliminate deductions and loopholes. Do you support a universal basic income program? Of course I do. I support it. Should welfare recipients be tested for drugs? No, it's a waste of time and money. Should employers be required to pay men and women the same salary for the same job? No, because it goes back to what I said, qualification and experience. Like, men tend to usually be doctors and women tend to be nurses. Women tend to work less than men. It's a case-by-case thing going on. You can't just... It's all based on experience and education. Do you believe labor unions help or hurt the economy? Help in theory, but have recently become corrupt and have their... Yep. Because it's true, we don't have any union. I think it's like 11% of Americans are supported by unions. Meanwhile, you have places like Norway that have like 70% of their people being being protected under unions. Don't quote me on those numbers though. It could be more, it could be less, but there be fewer or more restrictions on current welfare benefits? Should there be fewer or more? Uh, well, the way I'm seeing it now, there should be fewer as it stands right now. Like in a perfect system where we have social democracy, we wouldn't have welfare benefits, at least for the most part. But as far as it currently stands, we can't have a system that we can't have a system where it's more expensive to get off of welfare. And that's what we have right now. Like if you get off of welfare, you're going to be paying for more shit. And we can't, and in the society we have now where 8 out of 10 people are living paycheck to paycheck, you can't simply just put people in the workforce and expect them to have no safety net. Fewer. Honestly, fewer. Given this current situation we're in right now. Only because, don't get me wrong, you know, I want a generous welfare state, but not the way we have it now. I want people to have UBI, a living wage, everybody, not just a few, everybody. But at the same breath, the economy and the state we are in right now, it's gonna be really, really hard to get people from welfare into this economy. So I'm gonna put fewer. Fuck it. Should the government make cuts to public spending in order to reduce the national debt? Yeah, and eliminate federal agencies that are unconstitutional. Yeah, we would cut government massively. Look, guys, look at this option. No, increase taxes on large multinational corporations instead. Oh, you know what? I thought they were gonna say, give them tax breaks. My bad. I'm about to say, oh my god. Should the government increase the tax rate on profits earned from the sales of stocks, bonds, and real estate? Um, no. Is that the what is I think the capital gains are profits earned from the sales of stocks, bonds, and properties. Investment managers pay a 50 to 20% capital. Like any other income should be at least 30. It's not going to discourage growth. No. We don't need it. We don't need to. We don't need it. If we don't have I'm a libertarian, you know. Don't get me wrong, we need to pay for things like UBI and minimum wage, but we don't need to tax people up the ass. Should businesses be required to provide paid leave for full-time employees during the birth of a child or sick family member? Yes. Yes. The federal government should sponsor this program instead of businesses. Yes. Should the current estate tax be decreased? Yes. Should the government require businesses to pay salary employees making up to 46K a year time and a half off for overtime hours? No, we don't need that. Should the government use economic stimulus to aid the country during times of recession? Yeah, the government should. I think this pandemic has proven the government needs to do that. Should pension plans for state, federal, and local government workers be transitioned into privately managed accounts? More economic issues. Do you support American Free Trade Agreement of NAFTA? No, I do not. No. We lost jobs too in the 90s because of NAFTA, but Trump slipped in NAFTA provisions during the TPP negotiations, so, I thought he would do better on that, but he didn't. Should the U.S. increase tariffs on imported products from China? No. Because tariffs, the only people who pay for the tariffs are us. I don't know why people are praising Trump's tariffs. They helped some industries and they really hurt some industries. But overall, tariffs were a stupid ass idea to begin with. All you're majority of the time it's we're the ones paying for these tariffs. So it was just so silly. Should the government break up Amazon, Facebook, and Google? Yes, because Amazon, Facebook, and Google, they they mess with the interest of the American people and they lobby Congress. Congress takes the money and they give them special treatment. They give them tax holes and tax cuts and loopholes. So yeah, they should break them up and we should have real capitalism again. Absolutely. Should U.S. citizens be allowed to save or invest their money in offshore bank accounts? Yes. Should pension payments be increased for retired government workers? No. Should the president offer tax breaks to individual companies to keep jobs in the U.S.? You see, I'm on the fence about this. The capitalist me is like, listen, people should be able to go to whatever country they want and, do whatever they want. But at the same time, the more jobs we lose, the more companies we lose, then less, less revenue we have to fund the government and the things we need. Um, I'm going to leave this blank, I think. Should the president offer tax breaks to individual companies to keep jobs in the U.S.? I'm going to leave this blank. Do you support the TPP? No, of course I don't. Should the government subsidize farmers? No. Should the government acquire equity stakes in companies it bails out during recession? I should really one day go through all these questions and search up all of this shit because that would really help me out with my policy because I don't know anything about equity stakes. Would you favor an increased sales tax in order to reduce property taxes? Yes, but dramatically reduce government spending instead of raising taxes. Should the government add or increase tariffs on products imported into the country? No. Should an in-state sales tax apply to online purchases of in-state buyers from out-of-state sellers? Basically, should I have to pay the tax in my state or pay the tax in their state? Well, if I'm buying from the state of Florida, then I should be paying the Florida tax rather than the New York tax. So, customers should pay the sales tax from the seller state. Yep. Should the government classify Bitcoin as legal currency? Yes, absolutely. Should the government prevent mega mergers of corporations that could potentially control a large percent of marketers' share? Yeah, and I don't understand why people wouldn't agree with that. The government should break up any corporation that has lobbied Congress. And you want to know why? Because those people don't have have our interest in mind. They really don't. You can't. You're lobbying Congress. You're getting tax exemptions and loopholes. Meanwhile, the small businesses are they still have those regulations in place, and they're losing because of that. Meanwhile, you don't have to pay taxes, and you have exemptions. Should the IRS create a free electronic tax filing system? Yeah, they should. Save people money on their taxes. Should the Federal Reserve be audited by Congress? Yes, but I would prefer to abolish it and return to the gold standard. Should government continue to fund Planned Parenthood? No. What is your stance on abortion? Pro-choice? Pro-choice. I don't agree with the government has no right to ban it. Banning social issues, drugs, prostitution, gambling, etc., etc. That has never worked. It never will work because you can't legislate morality. Okay? Less deaths, less botched abortions happen when it's accessible and legal. Meanwhile, you have places in South America where you have abortion pills that are very accessible via the black market, and it's like a 91% effective rate within the first trimester with these type of drugs. So it's silly. You're just making the problem worse when you ban it. Should gender identity be added to anti-discrimination laws? Yeah, just for legality, for like hate crimes and stuff. Repeal anti-discrimination laws for private companies. Should health insurance providers be required to offer free birth control? No. Should a business be able to deny service to a customer if the request conflicts with the owner's religious beliefs? Yes, but the owner must post a sign stating their beliefs and what they refuse. Do you Listen, the free market can take care of this better than anybody, okay? When you have the government legislate morality like this, you're going to have racists smiling in your face but then talking crap about you after you leave. I don't want to give a racist my money. So if you're not going to sell to me because you're a racist, then that's fine. I just put you on Facebook, and now you just went viral, and now your whole business is about to be shut down. We've seen that stuff happen. We've seen the free market get rid of bigots and racists. Bigots and racists shouldn't be selling us consumption. So, yeah, we're just masking the problem. Do you support the legalization of same-sex marriage? Yes, I do. But churches have a right to refuse same-sex marriages. Should transgender athletes be allowed to compete in athletic events? I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to put yes, but only if their hormone levels are equivalent to those in the gender category in which they compete. I don't know if that can actually help or not. I'm not an expert at this, but I'm basing that off what I know at least. Should the federal government institute a mandatory buyback of assault rifles? No. Violation of the Second Amendment. Should gay couples have the same adoption rights as straight couples? Yes, as long as they can pass the same background checks as straight couples. Should the universities provide trigger warnings and safe spaces for students? No. No. Should businesses be required to have women on their board of directors? Well, let me go back to this question real quick. Should universities provide trigger warnings and safe spaces for students? I love this term, the battle of ideas. Basically, whose ideas are better? We have a debate on it, and whoever convinced people the most clearly articulated their ideas the best. And usually that's not always the case either. Don't get me wrong. But, there are too many closed-minded people in this world, and we should really just start having this mentality of people have different opinions of you. Either accept it or don't, or shut the fuck up. Because we're going to have a huge problem when the government is passing laws that destroy free speech, and the minute you start saying something that goes against the government, now you're going to be on their watch list. So any government that can make somebody make them go against their conscience can make you go against your conscience. So remember that. Should businesses be required to have women on their board of directors? No. They should be most qualified regardless of gender. Do you support the death penalty? No, too many people are innocently convicted. I don't think two wrongs make a right. I think we should have better standards than the murderers and psychopaths that are on death row. And a lot of these people have rehabilitated too. And it's much more expensive. It's smart to think that we save money by simply getting rid of these people, but the court cases, the process is much more expensive and much more complex. So we're actually spending more money on people on death row, and it's not like we get rid of them right away. These people are on death row for like 10, 15 years. So, no. Should states be allowed to display the Confederate flag on government property? Yeah, the 10th Amendment, states' rights. If you really don't like the Confederate flag, go vote it out. It's just a flag, though. Like me, I'm a Northerner. Seeing that, I think it's kind of silly, but, I think it's silly because there are people in the North repping that flag, which is silly to me. That's like me being in New York representing the Florida flag. That just doesn't make any sense. But, yes, states have rights, and one of those rights include this. Should the government support a separation of church and state by removing references to God on money, federal buildings, and national monuments? Removing existing references. Should women... We have a secular state, and God should not be referenced. Should women be allowed to wear niqab or face veil at civic ceremonies? Yeah. That's a no-brainer. Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives via assisted suicide? Yeah, I mean, if you really want to. If we have a psychological examination, there are going to be some states that make it on purpose so that you can't kill yourself. I truly believe that. So, no, we can't have a psychological exam, because then it'll just be a tiptoe situation. Should hate speech be protected by the First Amendment? Yeah. I don't like what you say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. And it's one of those things where it's like, people know stupidity when they hear it. If there's a Nazi advocating for superiority, then, majority of the population understands that's just silly. So yeah, let them talk so that we know who to stay away from. Should marital rape be classified and punished as severely as non-marital rape? Yes. Should even be a question. Should the military allow women to serve in combat roles? No, only because the Marines have done studies. Well, they've done experiments where they've tried to have integrated units, and it was a huge failure. So it's not that I don't have respect for women, because I do believe in equality, and I do believe women have gotten a lot of short ends of the sticks in this country. But I also want everybody safe. And quite frankly, given the current situation now, nobody should be joining the military. So I get it's honorable. I get it's about being honorable for some people and whatnot. I totally get that. But right now we're in illegal wars, and we shouldn't be in these wars. So, do you support the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act? Yes, but a mandatory single-payer system would be even better. I like this one. Medicare for all. Universal health care. I don't agree with everything I don't agree with all of Obamacare. You would have to be a hack, or at least really not care about universal health care. But one of the provisions I like, one of the provisions I would use, is the fact that 80% of costs had to go to actual care under Obamacare, which beforehand it was like a 50-50 thing. So that's what I love about that, because it mandated that how much had to go to actual care, which is great. But other than that, I just want to repeal it and have universal health care, single payer health care for all. Should the federal government increase funding of health care for low-income individuals? Yeah. But they should make it. I don't think they can make it private. They could if they wanted to. Do you support a single-payer healthcare system? Yes, but allow to use private insurance. I want a French-style system. France was ranked number 1 in healthcare this year. And basically, the government publicly funds it, and private insurance are the ones who actually take care of you, who implement the care. Italy does this too. They were rated number 2. So that's the type of system I would love to see. 45,000 Americans die every year from a lack of healthcare coverage. And it's disgusting. You don't have that anywhere else in any other developed nation, any developed or industrial nation. Like, it doesn't happen in France, it doesn't happen in Italy, sure as hell doesn't happen in Scandinavia. So I find it very disheartening when I hear people use the argument that socialized healthcare doesn't work. Well, we're not talking about an NHS system. We're talking about publicly funding it and having private insurance take care of everything. That's the best middleman solution to the Republican or the conservative liberal debate about Medicare for all and stuff like that. But it does work. It has worked. And to say it doesn't work would basically be ignoring the data. So we need it. I personally And I know a lot of people disagree with me. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they just have a different way of going about it. But nobody, at least in my unpopular opinion, should ever have to die from a lack of healthcare coverage. That is just something that shouldn't happen in the developed world. So, sorry, not sorry. Should people be required to work in order to receive Medicaid? No, because a lot of these people are disabled. Should the government fund the World Health Organization? I don't know too much about it. I didn't know we were funding it. If we are funding it, hold on. Let me read to learn more. I'm just gonna leave this blank. Should the government regulate the prices of life-saving drugs? The government should never regulate prices of private businesses. No, I think we should just stop letting big pharma price gouge us. I think that's a problem. They price gouge the crap out of us. Meanwhile, other countries, their prices are much more inexpensive. So we just need to stop cronyism. That'll stop a lot of the problems with the drug prices. Big Pharma spent like $27 million on lobbying. So there's a lot of things going against us. Should there be more or less privatization of healthcare? More. Veterans should be able to see any doctor of their choice. And replace the VA healthcare system with a personal health savings account. Yeah, I would love that. Should cities open drug safe havens where people who are addicted to illegal drugs can use them under the supervision of medical professionals? I always put no, but legalize all drugs because, one, I do want to do that, and two, I also think we should still have like a harm reduction program like that as far as legalize it. But yeah. And people rarely die from overdoses when you have safe havens. Should the federal government be allowed to negotiate drug prices for Medicare? No, the government should not interfere with the free market. I think if you have the competition, actual competition, you will lower these prices much more. Should health insurers be allowed to deny coverage to individuals who have pre-existing conditions? No, they shouldn't. Should the government increase funding for mental health research and treatment? Yes. But they should increase it for personalized care instead of subsidizing. Let me just go back to this. I just had a brain fart here. That's why I was looking and I wasn't really deciding. I just had a brain fart. Do you support the legalization of marijuana? Yes. And immediately release anybody serving time solely for the drug offenses. Should the government increase regulations to prevent climate change? Yes. I'm going to leave that blank. I don't know anything about that. To contain, I'm going to say no, but increase tax incentives for companies that make biodegradable products. Should the U.S. expand offshore drilling? Yeah. Do you support the use of hydraulic fracking to extract oil? I don't know too much about environmental issues, so I'm going to be skipping a lot of these. Should the government stop construction of Dakota Access Pipeline? Um, yeah, because they're required to buy eminent domain, and I don't agree with eminent domain. Should researchers be allowed to use animals in testing the safety of drugs, vaccines? No, animals don't have a voice. I mean, when you've had people are paid thousands of dollars for some testing. So if we're gonna do testing, it has to be on humans because animals don't have a voice, so they can't tell you if they're hurting. Should the government give tax credits and subsidies to the wind power industry? No. Should drilling be allowed in the Alaska Wildlife Refuge? I don't know anything about that. Should cities be allowed to offer private companies economic incentives to relocate? Hmm. Nah. Government should never subsidize private business. Should electoral college be abolished? No, I agree with it. I believe that the founders, I believe it gives us more representation within the state. Um, because we'll go by what the counties want as well. Um, so yeah, I agree with it. Should a photo ID be required to vote? Yes. I don't even know how that's even a debate or why people think black people are so poor that and so stupid that they can't provide ID for themselves. Should foreigners currently residing in the United States have a right to vote? Yes. If they, yeah. Anyone who pays taxes has a right to vote. Should political candidates be required to release their recent tax returns to the public? No. It'd be cool if they did, but no. What they make, what they make is none of our business. Should the U.S. have a mail-in ballot process for whole states and local, state, and federal elections? Yes, but only during national emergencies. Should there be a limit to the amount of money a candidate can receive from a donor? Yeah. And ban all political donations and publicly fund elections. Publicly fund elections so we get money out of politics and corporate welfare and lobbying. These are things that'll make the system less corrupt. Should a minimum voting age be lowered? Yes, people are stupid either way. So honestly, let people vote at like 16. Let people vote at 16. At that point, they should know enough about politics. If not, they'll learn. But should corporations, unions, and nonprofit organizations be allowed to donate to political parties? Um, no. It should be publicly funded. Should a politician who has been formally convicted of a crime be allowed to run for office? Yeah, because if you're a murderer or a rapist, I mean, you're not going to last long. God, should foreign lobbyists be allowed to raise money for American elections? No, because that's how we get into war. Like, think about APAC. Look at all the wars we're in because of APAC. Look at the military-industrial complex. No. Should there be a 5-year ban on White House and congressional officials from becoming lobbyists after they leave the government? Yes, and make it a lifetime ban. Is there a 2020 New York District 26 U.S. House of... I don't know any of these people. Joe Jorgensen. Which qualities are most important to you in a candidate? Honesty, effectiveness. Not. We did it. Dun, 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 dun. We did it. We did it. We did it. Yeah. Two, three, four, five. Dun, 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 dun. We did it. We did it. Hey, look at this, guys. Let's go. Okay, so this is who I am for my party. Wow, I really agree with the socialists a lot. Transhumanists, I agree with them a lot, apparently. Libertarian Party, 78%. So weird. I thought I'd get more in the Libertarian Party, but let's look at this real quick. Um, National security. I'm just waiting for all this to load up. National security. I agree with libertarians. I'm just gonna go. I'm third party guy. So just for the sake of confusion, I'm gonna look at the libertarians and Greens the most on this. So national security, libertarians and Greens. I agree with. Strongly agree. Foreign policy. Agree with them both heavily. Education. Agree with the Greens more. Libertarians, I strongly disagree with. Crime, I agree with them both massively. Healthcare, I agree with the Greens on. Domestic policy, I agree with Libertarians on the most. Elections, I strongly agree with the Dems and the Greens. Apparently, the Socialists, too. The economy, agree with the Socialists more than the Libertarians and Greens. Immigration, I agree with Libertarians on and the Greens on. Social, strongly agree. The environment, strongly agree with Libertarians. Only probably because I don't know much about it. Science, agree with the Greens. Themes. I'm neutral on pacifism. I'm a huge isolationist, meaning I strongly believe we should focus on attention on our most pressing issues at home. Yep, that's true. I'm extreme on privacy. I'm moderately left wing. To my moderately tender. Moderate on unilateralism. Moderate libertarian. Um, you side moderately towards big government, meaning you believe the government should do more to address social inequality, corruption, and assistance for its citizens. Oh, interesting. I'm for decentralization extremely. Oh, wow. You sides, this is a shock to me. I thought I was more of a capitalist, but according to them, I'm more of a socialdem, um, progressive. I'm moderately progressive. Collectivism, I'm a centrist. Politically correct, I'm neutral, next to the libertarians. Um, Neutral on nationalism? Oh, towards globalism. Um, I sl- I'm neutral on Keynesian policy, democracy versus meritocracy, moderate, protectionism, moderate, secular, I'm moderate, multiculturalism, moderate, deregulation, between moderate and neutral, environmentalism, why is the Libertarian Party on the left? Is This is definitely wrong. Either there's a glitch or there's something wrong, because usually they're usually like right here. They're usually, yeah, they're like they're usually on the opposite side of where they're at now. I don't, yeah, that must be a glitch or something. That or I'm missing something. So, but yeah, let's see quickly before I end this. I agree with Joe. I agree with Joe on 76%. Howie Hawkins, 81%. As it stands now, I am not voting. If I do vote though, it's gonna be for this chick. I wanted to show you guys other people I agree with, but I guess we won't be seeing that. But yeah, that's my I side with. Yeah, I was surprised by what I got, but I got it. Excuse me, I got it. But yeah, that's where I stand right now. So I will talk to you guys later. Thank you for spending time with me for 2 hours. Yeah, we'll talk soon. Thank you for watching.